Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marion from the Office for Institutional Planning, and I have my colleagues on stage with me, and they will introduce themselves as they come up. But I'd also like to point out that we have joining us today also a student from our institution, Loyiso, seated at the end of the table. Okay, we are here today to provide you with an update on our Siyaphumelela project, with a particular focus on our bonus project activities. I will provide a bit of background, and then I'll hand over to my colleagues from the Faculty of Law, and then they will hand over to our colleagues from the School of Engineering. And then, time permitting, I will step in again later to highlight some of our other sub-projects. First, I want to tell you a little bit about Nelson Mandela University. Nelson Mandela University has 7 campuses. 6 are located in the coastal city of Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape, and the 7th is in George in the Western Cape. Nelson Mandela University is a comprehensive university offering a wide range of general formative and vocational career-focused qualifications from certificate to doctoral level in 7 faculties. The majority of our students are enrolled in undergraduate programs in each faculty. And if we examine the distribution of undergraduate enrollments by qualification type, we can see that 57.1% are enrolled in undergraduate degrees, and the remainder are enrolled in certificate or diploma programs. As at March 2018, we had 26,300 enrolled students, of which 68% were African, 17% white, 14% colored, and 1% Indian. 53% of our students are female. The majority of our students stay off campus and commute to campus every day. 74% of our students come from the Eastern Cape. This is the province with the lowest national senior certificate pass rate for a number of years now, and it's one of the poorest regions in the country. 43% of our students are also from quintile 1 to 3 schools, and 38% of all of our students are receiving some form of financial aid. Data from our engagement surveys indicates that approximately 2/3 of our students are first-generation students. Access and success is one of our university's strategic priorities in our Vision 2020 strategic plan, and it is also the first one of our 6 strategic goals. Some institutional research that we conducted in about 2013 identified the following obstacles to first-year student success: difficulties with career and program choice, difficulties with transitioning to higher education, a lack of awareness and use of available student and academic support, financial issues, language difficulties, and factors that related to their lecturers, including not feeling free to avail themselves of consulting with their lecturers, and problematic teaching, learning, assessment, and feedback practices. Also factors relating to campus life and facilities. What we have discovered is that our university is less adept at tracking student progress to intervene at an earlier stage when students are struggling, and that gathering information on the impact of its student success and gathering information on the impact of our student success initiatives. But Nelson Mandela University recognizes that access must be linked to success, and we offer a range of student academic support and development services that are provided within and beyond the classroom, some of which were highlighted by our VC during yesterday's panel presentation. Broadening access has led to the university addressing other issues impacting on the success of economically vulnerable students, such as accommodation, student nutrition, and food security that we have heard so eloquently about from our colleagues at DUT just now. Access to textbooks and other learning materials, transport, and access to computing devices and Wi-Fi connectivity. The Nelson Mandela University was very excited to put forward an application for the Kresge Siyaphumelela grant so that it could weave other threads into the support blanket for its students. The Nelson Mandela University Siyaphumelela project goals were thus to develop a comprehensive set of student success indicators and data and identify monitoring and evaluation methods for each indicator. To develop an institutional electronic early warning tracking and monitoring system to monitor student performance, optimize early intervention strategies, and observe the take-up of academic support and development opportunities. To develop the capacity to generate and use data analytics related to student success and the improvement of student success initiatives. In early 2015, the Dean of Teaching and Learning brought an initiative already underway to the attention of the newly formed Nelson Mandela Siyaphumelela project team. A Teaching Development Innovation Fund project developed and proposed by Dr. Lynn Biggs and Gary Richards in the Faculty of Law, proposed the development of an electronic early warning system called RADAR. Due to the synergy with the goals of the Siyaphumelela project, a meeting was arranged with the law faculty team, and it was decided to partner in the further development of RADAR and to work towards its being piloted as a version 1 of the institutional early warning monitoring and tracking system. RADAR has been undergoing development since then. Later in 2015, work by the Siyaphumelela institutional researcher investigating other early warning initiatives and projects throughout the university highlighted work that had been ongoing in other faculties for some time, notably initiatives in the School of Engineering, but also in education and in nursing and health sciences. Meetings were held with a team from engineering to discuss the work that they had been busy with and to explore how to draw them into the further development of the institutional early warning monitoring and tracking system, as it was recognized that the engineering team had much experience and expertise to contribute to the project. There were a number of further meetings with the faculty which had expressed interest in piloting RADAR. The team in engineering wished to explore moving from a more manual system to an electronic system to enhance efficiency for the staff and to permit staff to reach more students. Thus, it was decided that the bonus project would entail fully rolling out RADAR in the Faculty of Law and the School of Engineering, focusing on first-year students. Law was chosen as one of the faculties because, due to the developments of RADAR alluded to earlier, the faculty was in a position to provide capacity to support the rollout. Law as a faculty has also experienced an increase in the student-to-staff full-time equivalent ratio from 39:1 in 2005 to the current ratio of 67:1, which is the highest at Nelson Mandela University. Concomitantly, the faculty has been grappling with low student success rates and low throughput rates in the LLB program. The development of RADAR was a response from the faculty in their efforts to find better ways to support their students. The motivation for choosing the Faculty of Engineering the School of Engineering, was that the Department of Industrial Engineering had been implementing a manual early warning system for a number of years, and so again there was capacity in the faculty to support the rollout. The School of Engineering has developed a holistic framework to support first years and promote student success. From 2018 as well, the Faculty of Engineering has replaced its diploma programs with BEng Tech degrees. And the faculty is anticipating that the first-time entering students enrolling in these new degree programs will require more support than current students to succeed, especially those that are admitted through our alternative access admissions testing. The specific activities of the bonus project will be the complete rollout of radar and enhancements focusing on first-year students, for lecturers to use the system to its maximum by identifying students for early academic interventions using radar, meeting with the students, referring the students for academic advising and or other interventions, working with the advisors to monitor attendance of interventions, and working with advisors to establish data trends. The project will also entail the development and rolling out and monitoring of a student dashboard. This will link radar to student counselling's databases, and particularly to the learning enhancement checklist. And it would also link radar to all other interventions. Providing academic advising capacity under the mentorship of the Centre for Teaching, Learning and Media was another activity for the bonus project. And the development of an academic advising database to gather data on the students that are referred for academic advising. There are also a number of sub-projects that I'll allude to again at the end of the presentation, which are researching possible predictors of student success in support of the development of the predictive capabilities of radar. I will now hand over to my colleagues from the Faculty of Law.
I'm Lynn Biggs from the Faculty of Law, and Marion has already explained some of the background to the whole development of radar, and we actually started with the concept of radar in about 2013, but very, very basic and very simplistically. And then luckily we were put into contact with somebody from ICT Services. And then we joined the Siyaphumelela project in 2015. We actually did a presentation at the 2016 Siyaphumelela conference on our initial development stages of radar. And then, of course, the whole Fees Must Fall happened, and the development of radar actually took a bit of a backseat at the end of 2016. And we picked up again on the development of radar in 2017. And it became extremely evident to us that there was something lacking. We had the data, but us in faculty, lecturers, HODs, Dean, we didn't have the capacity, or we weren't equipped to actually deal with some of the information that was available to us. We've identified that there is a gap, and the way to go forward in our 2017 rollout of radar within the faculty, we realized that we needed an academic advisor. So our story is a bit of a blank page at the moment because we're still writing the story. So we started off with radar, and now we are moving into bringing in academic advising into the faculty. So it's a bit of we're starting off. So at this stage, initially it was a bit of a blank page. So the elements for making a good story, well, definitely, we have some of those elements. And for any good story, you need good characters, you need a good, strong plot, and you need some research. And luckily for us, we have a very influential dean and a very supportive dean of the Faculty of Law, Professor Avinash Gavanji, as well as some HODs that are very supportive of the implementation of radar and the academic advising project within the faculty. But unfortunately, as Marion has indicated, we have a very high staff-student ratio. So we, as lecturers, do not have the capacity, the time to dedicate to academic advising at a lecturer level without the support of an academic advisor to assist us within the faculty. Luckily for us, we have some very dedicated and keen faculty members who have taken on this project with great enthusiasm. We also have a lot of data and research on academic success of law students going back to 2011. So we can also work on that. And then, of course, we have our students that are needing our assistance, and we also have the support of members outside of the faculty, like SI, the Writing Centre, student counselling, various other support staff that assist us. But then, of course, the protagonists of the story are myself and Mrs. Kim Herter, who fortunately for us, she was appointed on a year contract, unfortunately, but we're going to work on that. She has a lot of institutional knowledge. Has been part of the institution for over a decade, and is sort of still based in the in our centre, which is the Centre for Access, Assessment and Research. So we do have some of the elements for a good story. But now our challenge is to intentionally and purposefully connect and coordinate the individual elements towards a systematic, coherent, integrated and sustainable plan to positively impact on student success. So it's a huge challenge. And as I indicated, we only have, at this stage, it's a year contract that we have. So we've had to start smart. Okay, so in order to do that, we needed to obviously plan sufficiently and develop the necessary systems and materials and interventions, and we have some of those in place already. We are going to experiment this year with our plan and see how it goes so that we can refine systems and interventions, so it's systems as well as radar and other interventions that we are currently busy with. And then thirdly is to ensure that we do this year is guided by theory and is also practical, but at the same time is practical. So the framework that we base this on, this is based on the work of Ulf Lizio, the student life cycle. But unfortunately, we won't be able to go through the entire student life cycle. So we're going to, in 2018, we're going to be focusing on the prospective student, as well as the new students, and then working on data that we and information that we have this year. We can then look at projecting for prospective students next year. We also focused on Lizio's 5 senses, which I'm not going to go into much detail because I know we're running out of time, but we're going to have this as the background for 5 senses to student success as part of the academic advising project within the Faculty of Law. So to tell you more about our actual plan and the nitty-gritty about what has happened so far, I'm going to hand over to Kim Herter. Thank you, Kim.
So I'm just going to chat about what I've been implementing in the faculty this year. So far, like Lynn said, it's very early stages. I walked in with not much, so sort of some of the outside help in terms of SI and CTLM and student counselling, but within the actual faculty itself, there was very little. So we developed a plan that has 3 focus areas: pre-entry, first year success, and then also just focusing on the faculty a little bit more in terms of encouraging a systematic and integrated plan for student success. There we go. And using sort of Lizio's work as a guideline, we're looking at students who are transitioning towards university, those who are then transitioning into university, our first years, and the plan in terms of student success will be to how do we start to help students to then transition through university. A lot of sort of why we've chosen these particular areas is some of it is dealing with current concerns that we have in terms of pre-entry, and then also based on research that we've done in the last year, having a look at retention, graduation, and sort of student success within the first year. First year also became a project. So in terms of focus area 1, this has really been the main focus area up until this point. We've looked at specific objectives in terms of trying to develop and implement a tracking and monitoring system. We have radar as the tool, but the actual program and how that process will work has still needed to be developed. We want to link a tiered intervention system to that tracking and monitoring approach that we're going to use. And then also just to look at orientation. And in the law faculty in first year, they have a legal skills program, which incorporates some elements which could maybe be seen as extended orientation. So things like study skills, looking a little bit at careers in law, that kind of thing, time management. So just wanting to have a look at how we could look at sort of improving the role that the academic advisor plays in orientation, but then also the extended orientation program. So the focus has really been on the early alert program. The way that it was conceptualized, we made use of research data from last year. Last year we tracked 5 cohorts of LLB students and LLB extended students over a period of from 2011 to 2015, and we've been able to gather quite sort of good information that's given us a lot of insight into just how students are progressing through these 2 programs. From that, we were also able to develop, we did a logistic regression, and we were able to identify some predictive variables that came out of that. Most notably was whether students have maths or maths literacy, and then also their first semester test results in terms of being good predictors for first semester academic average. So at the beginning of the year, I didn't have a lot of data to work with. It wasn't easily accessible. So I started with what I had, and that was related to information that we got from our Centre for Access Assessment and Research, and for the students that they had tested, and they provided some developmental recommendations. So I started just to meet with those students, really just to chat about, how things are going, how they're finding the program, if they have any challenges. It wasn't really to identify students at risk necessarily. It was really just to try and connect with students. What I found from that is when I met with students, they were still all pretty much okay, or thought that they were. And so, students didn't really feel like they needed any kind of support or intervention or anything at that stage. But I think it was a good opportunity just to connect with students, and what I'm finding is those students now with exam times have started to come back and see me. So that was something that I started with, but then we moved on to using trying to sort of identify students from the first semester test results who may then be more at risk in terms of academic performance by the end of the semester. And we developed a sort of identification system looking at first semester test results. So we identified students who had failed a module, failed a test in a specific module, and we asked those students to meet with their lecturer. And we found that was really, really helpful. We then also they've got 3 core law modules in the LLB program, and we took the semester test results from those 3 core law modules, and we created an academic average. The research that we conducted last year showed that students who have an academic average of above 55% tend to be on track for first year. Those who have an academic average of between 50 and 54% tend to be more at risk, and those who have an academic average of below 50% are at high risk of actually dropping out of the program. So we identified kind of a tiered system based on that information. And then we asked those students, if they'd failed a module, to meet with the academic, the lecturer who was involved first, and then to come and meet with me. And we've been having a look at those students. So they've been having individual sessions with me, and then also we've had some group kind of interventions as well. So, yeah, I think what we've kind of learned out of that, we then want to move on to the next phase, which will be looking at the June examinations. and we want to then start having a look at firstly tracking the students that we have been monitoring based on first semester test results to see how they've now done in the June examinations, but also to use results from that particular set of examinations to determine who we need to start having a look at, going forward in the second semester. So far, out of these 4 kind of phases, we've really mostly focused on the third phase in terms of the academic average and looking at semester test performance. What I've realized out of that is that because semester tests are written sort of over block 1, end of block 1 and beginning of block 2, that it's very late in the year or in the semester to actually then start intervening. And so I think that from that first phase in terms of the predictive variables becomes very, very important. What we are also then considering is a second phase, which, because we've got the legal skills module, which is given sort of via Moodle, that there may be behavioral kind of data that we can pick up from there that could be also used as an early identification data. So just some of the lessons that we've learned so far. As I said, it's very early on still, and there will need to be a lot of refinement still, but that buy-in and collaboration with the lecturers and then also our extended LLB lecturers is really critical for the effectiveness and impact of this early alert program. We had one particular lecturer who really just took it on board. She met with all her students. She took it upon herself to tutor students additionally, where they were struggling with things like application that the academic advisor wouldn't necessarily be able to help with. And we've seen a big improvement in the test results of their second semester test where that has happened. The first semester test results, as I said, as a first indicator are almost a little bit too late to really meaningfully intervene because it leaves very little time between your first semester test and your second semester test. So I think that highlights for us that the use of pre-entry data and maybe early academic behavior data to identify students earlier is actually important, and we'll be looking into how we can do that more effectively for next year. And then also to ask questions around, can we meaningfully intervene or to reach more students through a program that has more generic group interventions in the first term? So targeting all of our first years and legal skills, or in the new curriculum, possibly another sort of academic development kind of module may be a place that we can do that. I think what we've also learned is all of this was done on Excel, which just highlighted that an electronic system is really critical, and so it supports what we are doing with Radar. The process has also informed Radar's reports, and it's provided in terms of providing data that is specifically required by the academic advisors. So this process is now starting to inform how Radar can be further developed to also support academic advisors in monitoring students and not just lecturing staff. We found that there was great value in having the academic staff involved. In many cases, our students actually struggled with things like application, not understanding the expectations in terms of answering questions, and those are really things that the lecturer is better positioned to help with than the academic advisor. So that was a really valuable part of academic advising, in a sense, that the lecturer became an advisor as well. And going forward, I think we would probably really want to incorporate that into the model of academic advising that we take on. More common challenges like note-taking and time management and study process and, just attitude in terms of maybe underestimating the course or university in general. The academic advisor was better positioned to help, and so in those instances, students were then referred on to me. I think what we've also found is that it's useful to have like a standard kind of program for students that are on the EAP, the Early Alert program. So we will now start looking at setting up almost a specific intervention program for individuals that then come onto this program. So it might be a combination of individual sessions with the academic advisor, looking at more personal development issues, academic goals, knowing yourself, the way that you learn, motivation. We also have about 15 postgraduate assistants in the faculty, and I think that we would want to have a look at how we could better use that resource in terms of peer advising. So that's something that we'll also be looking into in the future. And then possibly as part of that program to have some group interventions that might be able to deal with things like decision making, motivation, self-regulation, study skills, time management, note-taking, and having a look at who can assist with all of these things. So we already have, CTLM in place, student counselling, and can we bring some of those colleagues on board to help us provide this kind of service to our students. In terms of focus area 2, we're looking at pre-entry preparation, strategies to enhance admissions process, and then strategies to also improve registration uptake. What we're going to focus on there is things like law pathways for program offerings. So having a lot of this information online, trying to connect with our students in terms of open days, so our prospective and provisionally admitted students, and then also having more resources online to help students think about the transition to university more realistically. So these are some of the strategies that in the second semester we're going to be looking at. And then just lastly, in terms of our third focus area, in terms of a plan for student success, we, by the end of the year, would like to establish a definition of student success in the Faculty of Law specifically, so to look at the institutional definition and then, see how that fits in with the Faculty of Law. We want to establish Faculty of Law goals for student success. So is this around retention? Is it around graduation and throughput? What exactly do we want to focus on? We want to try and establish the role of academic advising in the Faculty of Law a little bit more, and then to link academic advising to the discipline, to the actual academics. And we're wanting to try and do this through a series of seminars in the second semester, which will provide some kind of forum for our faculty staff to be able to discuss academic advising and how it can be further implemented in the faculty to support staff and students. So academic advising in the Faculty of Law is really still a story unfolding, but we have a plan.
This year we were fortunate enough for the first time in our faculty and in our engineering school to employ our academic advisor, Kerwin, as part of the Siyaphumelela bonus project. And hence this presentation is going to be sharing with you what we have, how we've managed this process of academic advising in our engineering school and also the rollout thereof. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about the faculty and previous interventions we've had. And then part 2 and 3 is going to be Kerwin, who's going to discuss professional support and academic advising. And then we're going to hear from our student, Loiso. Within our Department of Industrial Engineering, we've been developing student interventions for a number of years. The reason for this is because we understand that student success is everyone's business, as it is also one of our strategic priorities at our university. And we also believe that it's our responsibility to drive student retention and development interventions. And it is up to us to find the answers as to what influences our student retention, development, and success. And then we have to adjust our curriculum and how we handle and treat our students accordingly. Some of our earlier interventions was our very basic early identification system, where we used an Excel spreadsheet to look at first and second test marks, And then we would send students a letter and tell them you've been flagged, you're possibly running the risk of being excluded. We also have developed learning styles and study skills workshops, which was presented by Runal and our colleagues from student counselling. And this was particularly valuable for our part-time employed students. So they only have the opportunity to attend any intervention after hours or on a Saturday. They cannot get off from work. So this was very important to give them some kind of preparation, because most of them have for at least 10 years not been a student. We also offer a workplace orientation workshop whereby we try and prepare our students for the world of work. This is especially valuable before they enter their 1 year in-service training. We've also established a Women in Engineering Leadership Association with the aim of developing, retaining, and supporting women who, by studying engineering traditionally, would end up working in a workplace that's traditionally male-orientated. Throughout all of these interventions and developing these interventions, we've realized that we as academics, and especially us in the engineering faculty, who very often come from the very harsh factory environment, need the expertise and the knowledge of our colleagues, especially those in CTLM, like Ronald, and student counselling. I think this is very evident in our early identification system, which, as I mentioned, we started off with Excel spreadsheet, and initially we gave the students a very stern punitive letter to say, you're going to be excluded, go and seek help. Needless to say, we had students knocking on the door, parents. Student counselling was highly upset with us for being so insensitive, for not communicating with them. But the silver lining of that process was that this meant us working closer with student counselling. This actually meant that we sat down and we got advice from them. How do we handle this situation? What is the best way to try and identify students that do run the risk of being excluded or really battling in class? And so we went through various iterations whereby we invited them to attend workshops on Saturdays, and then hardly any students arrived, to the point where our counsellors went into the classroom to explain to them what early identification was about and why it would be important for them to attend the workshops, to the point where we actually went, Ronal and student counselling colleagues went into the classroom, and they actually did interventions in the classroom. We are now at the point where we've decided that we wanted a more proactive approach rather than reactive, because as Kim said, test results comes out so late, there's very little time to intervene. So our approach has been to include mentorship in the timetable. So in all our new engineering BET degrees, there's a mentorship timetable, slot on the timetable where Kerwin, our academic advisor, goes into the classroom, and we have a structured, tailor-made program focusing on academic success strategies. Ronal is continuing with that mentorship on the timetable for our more senior diploma students that's still in the system. So just briefly, because we are running out of time, some of the lessons that we've learned pre-academic advising, that we are now able, by having an academic advisor and by having this team of academic advising, we are now able to respond to the things that we have learned, and we are able to incorporate this into our academic advising. We understand that there's a lot of data available, especially the admission testing data is extremely important. To know where the students come in and what are the potential problems that they could have. Now that we have the team, we can address those issues. We now have the resources to do that. It's also easier for us to have a more humanized approach of building connectiveness and creating a sense of belonging and inclusion with our students. It's easier to have a connection with them. We have two key people who sort of provides that bridge between academics and the students. It's very important to collaborate with people who come in with different set of skills, with a different philosophy and a different viewpoint. And all of that helps us to change the culture around teaching and learning and understanding how we can best support and develop our students.
As the African proverb says, when the music changes, so does the dance. Therefore, the Fees Must Fall context has reminded us that if local knowledge is socially constructed, that resides in living memories, practices, and expressions of the practicing communities, how can an academic advising model, or at least a framework at this stage, give expression to such interconnectivity in a system such as the School of Engineering? And within my section of the presentation, we'll be touching on those 3 points. What has reminded us that academic advising is necessary, and keeping in mind Ubuntu and collective identity, we continually ask ourselves, how does data gear or shape us towards adopting a more humanizing pedagogy framework infused with one of our core values at the Nelson Mandela University, Ubuntu, in how we advise students towards success as well as creating effective learning communities? It is easy to quote someone that has said something, but it is important that it moves us. And this further ties in with the Vision 2020 of our institution to be a dynamic African university. And therefore it is important that everything that we do encapsulates the important elements of humanness into a supportive system that captures the student success agenda, not merely as a means to an end, but by understanding the deep ontological philosophy of my humanity with yours towards a strategic priority as student success. I'm not going to touch too much on this slide, because Lo has alluded to the student life cycle. And also in one of the sessions yesterday, we spoke about the different emotions that a student experiences at various points throughout the student life cycle. And advising within the School of Engineering therefore aims to help students through this transition as we work towards curriculum transformation. Okay. So working with students has shown me that theory has or can have a heart, and it has allowed me to reflect and rethink and also understand not only what I am doing, but why I am doing it, when I am doing it. And if we look at the adjustment towards academic performance, so this is the Robbins et al. 2004 model, and it was quoted in a 2009 paper by UCT academics. And at the bottom, to just look practically at how this adjustment may play out on the student life cycle, and then it becomes evident that the timing of our interventions is critical, because we might have an intervention, but then the students might not be in that place within the student life cycle to attend the intervention. If we look at the third week, and this also makes us rethink orientation for the next year. Just an example of that within the School of Engineering, we are looking at the school curriculum for maths and physics, and trying to see what those potential gaps are, and then looking at the curriculum that they do in the first year and seeing how in orientation already we can try and bring that closer together for them. In terms of research, so as we know, we need to look at multiple points of data. I would have liked to explain each of the questionnaires, but I'm just going to highlight at this stage the learning enhancement checklist, because I do make reference to that a bit later, and to also say that we're also working on a predictive model with this unit for statistical consultation at the university, and we would like to use regression analysis and to triangulate the findings of the questionnaires in the first semester with the focus groups and the interviews in the second semester. Okay, so we have our perceived risks, which would be our key performance indicators on radar, that radar would flag for us at a later stage. And as discussed yesterday, our perceived risks are informed by Maslow's hierarchy. Okay, just going to move on. So for my first semester as academic advisor in the School of Engineering, I was supported by the training that Google presented from the University of the Free State, CTLM, and the School of Engineering. And this really helped me orientate myself in the new role with someone that only has previous training and experience in clinical psychology and not really in academic advising. So those are the interventions that I found myself facilitating and being involved in. I helped with the training of the how-to orientation buddies within the School of Engineering, and we had the connecting with others and the engineer peer tutoring program. In terms of the tutoring, it started in maths and physics, and then rolled out in engineering drawings and computers, as well as a computer science module for the mechatronics students. There was also individual points of connectivity and many referrals. Okay, so with the LEC, a sample of 339 students completed it, or I'll be reporting on the data from the sample of 339 students, and those are the items on this LEC that came up from the responses. And if we look at it against the Robbins et al. Model, so self-esteem in terms of the LEC item, feelings about yourself, of our sample, just under 45% felt unprepared when they started university studies, which I think is quite significant. In terms of academic overload and module content, about 27% reported that they can't manage the combined module load, and this informs how we look at second semester when the engineering students will have more engineering modules, because the first semester was filled with mostly service modules. So the engineering students have 6 modules per semester, and their timetable runs from about, in terms of class, 8 o'clock until 4 o'clock every day. Okay, and then in terms of the language difficulties, we will in the second semester be working more closely with our multilingual expert on campus with regards to that. Okay, so Brené Brown, in a 2014 TED Talk entitled The Power of Vulnerability, spoke about how she said maybe stories are just data with a soul. And I think that often we can have access to all sorts of data, but then still miss the heart of the matter. And Loiso gave more meaning to my story by bringing a more human face to my experience as an academic advisor. And no phenomena can be captured without locating it first. We therefore need to locate our own ways of knowing and being, and the interconnectedness of others in our space. And this is where Loiso's story brings us to the heart of the matter.
My name is Loiso Kinana. I was born in Eastern Cape, in a small village in Pedi Extension. I'm a student at Nelson Mandela University, civil engineering, final year student. And today I am here to share my story with you. As a young black South African who had a dream of being a civil engineer, the road to the engineering had not been an easy one for me. Coming from a poor background, I had a dream of being the only child in my family to succeed, but the challenges I had to go through were beyond my expectations. Being gunshot during robbery, losing my father and sister during the same year, had traumatized me and caused a permanent scar in my heart, as my father was the breadwinner and the one who had supported me during varsity. I had to drop out from school due to financial reasons, and I began to look for a job in order to pay my outstanding balance at the university. At the same time, I had to be responsible for my family, as there was no one working anymore. I did manage to get the job and settled my account, and also took care of the family. I had to quit the job, as my passion was to finish my studies in engineering. During this period, I had saved some money to finance my studies, but my personal problems at home had escalated. As I was in school, I had to save some money and food just to feed my family. This was seen as my sister, who is HIV, got very sick. It really distracted me, as I had to always think of them, that if something happened to them, where will we get the money? This affected me badly on my academic results, and I opted to take the first step, and that was to book myself to counseling at NMU. It was through the counseling department from NMU that I started to heal, and during this time I had no place to stay, but sleeping in labs, chairs, and bathe in men's toilet, as I did not want to miss classes. Attending classes, I would be always tired because I was sleeping very late when all of students have gone. It was through the counseling that I was introduced to NMU engineering academic advisors, Ms. Ronelle Platis and Kevin Apilam. From the first consultation with them, they were able to listen and analyze my problem. They became family and friends, and the relationship I had built with them allowed me to open up, as I saw I needed help, and I cannot do it alone. Through all this experience, I have come to realize that you are not alone. There are people in our institution that can listen to our story and change someone's life. After all, it is not how you start, but how you finish that matters the most. Thank you.